afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkey Wrestling Podcast.
No worries. We are live. Welcome back. We are here on Twitch, live with you. Welcome back to the Bald Monkeys podcast. Welcome to day 12 of our 12 days of streaming. I'm exhausted. Thankfully, Big Baby Jimmy helped me out. I am here. Christopher with you. Captain Chuckles is here. Hey, Captain. Happy New Year to you. And our very special guest, one of our very good friends, the CEO of Action Wrestling, Matt Griffin. Matt, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Let me put it that way.
Thanks for having me back. How are you?
We are good. Like I said, we are tired. It's been a busy 12 days I've been busy raising for 12 indie wrestlers. As you can see, if you look below us on the Twitch stream right now, you see our goal is not there yet. It's not there yet. So we're gonna push. We're gonna push tonight and see what we can do. But I'm making the announcement ahead of our conversation right now. The 12 days has turned into more than 12 days. The Bald Monkeys are pledging that we will not stop raising money for indie wrestlers and the indie wrestlers that we promised that we were going to raise money for. So we are going to commit to the money that we've saved so far, pass that along to the first few wrestlers, and then continue raising until we hit the goal. That is our pledge to indie wrestling and the fact that we're going to continue to support indie wrestling because we don't make any money doing this. And most indie wrestlers don't make much money doing what they're doing. So we're trying to help them out.
Well, on behalf of independent wrestling, I will say thank you guys for all your efforts, everything to help, push wrestlers so that they can push themselves, promote their product, promote shows. On behalf of the entire collective world of independent wrestling, thank you so much for everything you guys are doing. I promise it's appreciated, even if you don't hear that.
Oh no, we hear it a lot. I think that's why we love doing what we do for indie wrestling, and I know Captain will echo this. When we started, it wasn't going to be indie wrestling, but the appreciation that not only the wrestlers but the fans and everyone involved in indie wrestling shows us, it's a no-brainer for us to continue helping out indie wrestling as much as we can.
Good. I love the fact that you have wrestlers who, they go to a school and they get out there and they do their first round of cutting teeth on their independent shows, and then they get to a point where even if they don't sign a contract, they can make real money. Or there's lots of independent wrestlers who do this for a full-time living, whether it's from they're making a lot of money from merchandising, getting booked, and they can do that on an independent level without having a full-time contract. And to me, that's a huge deal. So thank you for helping take steps where more and more wrestlers can do that and make that jump to supporting themselves from this full-time.
Oh, can't hear Matt. I'm going to turn the audio up real quick. There we go.
Thanks, Val.
Thanks, Val. Val is our technical support person. We should be on point now.
I'm just looking at a Zoom screen, so I have no idea what's happening on Twitch.
Tons. There's thousands of people right now watching. Thousands.
I'm a draw. Confirmed draw.
So, Matt, we're going to test your memory, but what I really want to do...
Oh, we might be in trouble.
I'm going to lose. I'm just going to bet against myself at that.
For those of you who don't know, we were in the green room before talking to Matt, and it's hard to remember as many different matches as you put on in a full year, even in a shortened year. So we're not gonna fake out Matt and try to trick him. We're basically gonna come in here and we're gonna try to reminisce about 2020 because it was weird, Matt, because I didn't get to interview you the first time through. And I went back and rewatched that interview, and I remember it being a little somber. Like there was some sadness in that interview because I feel like you didn't know what was next. You didn't know what 2020 was going to hold because it was around the corner was nothing. Nothing was
Yeah.
planned, nothing could be planned. So it was kind of the unknown for you. And I want to kind of take us back to that point and what motivate we talk about motivation all the time. What motivated you to push through that and to get to where we are today, which we'll get to later in our conversation?
I mean, to me personally, the fact I just enjoy what I'm doing, and everybody says that, but a lot of people are saying that and making real money at this. It's pretty much known that with action wrestling, I donate a lot of my profits and basically all my profits to different nonprofit charities and school groups. Um, it's become a lot harder with that because, well, none of my costs go away. I still have the same, I still have to pay for insurance. I still have to pay for, the building, the ring when I run a show. But the profit margins have gone down enormously. I haven't taken a loss on any shows. We've been in the black still every show, but it's a lot different because when I pay a certain uh, tax to the town, it's costing the same as it was last year, regardless of the fact that we're bringing in a lot less money.
Hmm.
But what's kept me going is that this is my passion project. Um, after I quit as a, you can't really retire in independent wrestling because nobody believes it. And second of all, unless you were full time making an income, you can't really retire from a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so so I took a number of years off, and when I came back to run wrestling, it was because I wanted to be here. I had some very specific goals that I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to make it possible to build a pipeline out of Georgia for in the southeast for wrestlers to be able to gain more prominence on a national level. I never wanted to be the biggest thing in Georgia, so that was never my goal. I wanted to push wrestlers to a different level, and I wanted to run shows that were relevant on a national level. So that was my driving factor. Is that action wrestling is best described as my personal passion project. I do this because I want to, and the second I really don't want to do shows or I decide I'm done putting up with it, I'm basically done. I
Mm-hmm.
will have an Irish goodbye. I think I use that term right, and just kind of shut the doors, and no more bookings will come. That's what I did with my career in wrestling. As I just stopped taking bookings, I stopped doing it, and that was pretty much my driving force. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I will be honest; it was very selfish. I wanted to get back in it because I wanted to do it, but by accomplishing my goals that I want to that I set for myself, it propels wrestlers in the southeast to different heights. In the 2.5 years we've been going, I think we've had a lot of wrestlers that we've put out there. I hear feedback that I'm not necessarily going to promote, but I know that certain things we've done have had a big impact on the wrestling world, and I would say a good 90 to 95% of that is because of independent wrestling TV. Being on IWTV since our first show has been such a huge deal.
Yeah, and I mean, I did the first interview with you, Matt, that we had back in May
Eight,
or June or
18,
something.
18 years ago, back this spring. In
And it was me. It was me and the boss. And I remember, I don't know if it was myself or him, but we did ask you, you know, what's next? Do you know if you're coming back? And exactly what Chris said. Like there was so much unknown, and like I think Chris and I even talked after it aired, and I was like, man, it 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 doesn't sound like Matt has given up, but there's just so much that is, who knows what's going to happen. And up to that point, Action only had 2 events starting in 2020, I believe, if our
Hmm.
crack research team are correct. But after that,
Crack is right.
once yeah, crack is right. But once you guys came back, you guys put out 9 events between September and December, which is awesome, not just for action, but for every single wrestler that you've had on those shows. And it shows your passion and their passion, from the start of one of your shows to the end. I mean, it goes, and
Hmm.
the shows are very, very, very good. And I mean, with with how many people are there, and just like you said, you're still in the black, but it's not where it was before. To get the names and to get the shows that you guys have put on is a testament to your love for wrestling. And I thank you. I know Christopher thanks you. All of us thank you for continuing to push forward to do that.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun. I get to promote shows in my hometown. The building is literally 4 minutes from my house.
Easy
Uh,
commute.
it's a very easy commute. I often will set up some at the building, go home and get prepped and take a shower, and then go back. It's very easy. I love to be able to do this. I love the fact that it's a different dimension. I wrestled for years, and now as a promoter, I basically felt 2.5 years ago when I started like I was starting brand new. So I have a lot to prove. I've been in the wrestling business. I started 22 years ago, but I've been a promoter for 1/10 of that time. So I still have a lot of things to learn. There's lots of good promoters um, who I talk to and communicate with, who I pick up things from. Black Label Pro, my friend Mikey Blanton. I learned something, just offhand, and I was like, you know what, that's a good idea, and I started doing it, and it helped my shows go even smoother. It was something very small. Other promoters, I pick up stuff from. Um, I don't know. It's a very weird time. Obviously, wrestling is not nearly the most important thing going on. This is a pandemic. It's a gigantic national tragedy going on right now. But I'm proud that in the state of Georgia, there's shows that are going on with hundreds of people. They don't mandate masks, and they can say whatever they want about social distancing, but that's not happening. Um, Chris, you've been to my shows. Masks are mandatory. We have temperature checks. We socially distance the chairs. I put out every chair and arrange them all myself so that they can
Yes.
be, groups can be separate from each other. And um, we try to be as safe as we possibly can. I
Yep.
feel safer at one of my shows because everybody's masked and I can make everyone wear a mask than I do, go into the grocery store sometimes.
Yeah.
Because if you see somebody
Yeah,
without a
true.
mask in a public spot, you don't know what else they're doing, who else they're around. At my shows, I make it really easy. Everybody has to wear a mask. Um, so we just, I'm very fortunate in that regard that we're able to do shows. And I feel that we're doing them fairly safely. It's
I,
not, it's not the same atmosphere as in February when we had our 2,500 versus hair show. We had 250 people in the building. That was a sellout for us. We had a lot of extra people there too, so we were very full, and that was a totally different atmosphere for a Matt Sells entrance than it is with from the 35 fans. I still think the wrestling, the in ring, is as good, but it's not going to be received the same. But that's just the world we're dealing with. I'm not willing to compromise on safety, and I'm not willing to go ahead and try to put 100 plus fans in a building so that I can just make more money. That's I'm not interested in doing that. And
Yeah.
I think that you see the most of the top level promotions are trying to be as safe as they possibly can.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you guys are going above and beyond. I mean, you say wearing masks. It's not even just wearing masks during the show. It's wearing masks before the show, after the show, during the show. Everyone has a mask at all times, and I appreciate that. Being able to bring family to it, I appreciate that. I mean, you're doing a great job, Matt. But I do
And
want to
Chris,
go.
and you can talk about it because you've been to shows and you've been to shows
Yeah.
beforehand. You see, like last show we had an extremely quick setup time, and everybody before the show, I didn't have to go around asking wrestlers to wear masks. I have extra masks that I bring to shows, and I don't have to hand them out because people bring them.
Yep.
They wear them. It's not something where I've not yet, thankfully, been put into a position where I have to be a jerk about it. I easily would be. Everybody buys a ticket knowing what it's gonna be. Oh, I absolutely would be a jerk, and
You
none of
say
the
I'm
wrestlers,
Matt.
to their credit.
I'm pretty sure I just heard you say I absolutely would be a Matt. That's what I heard.
Absolutely would be a jerk. I'm sorry, my brain, especially the week of a show,
No, no, it
coming
was good.
into
A
a
Freudian
show
slip. Yeah, it was good.
is, oh my gosh. Um,
See, but Matt, that's also a testament to the people that are coming to your shows, that they're willing to do that for everyone's safety at the show. So that's a pat on the back to them too,
Well, it's
not just you guys.
Well, it's their livelihood too,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what I mean. Ultimately, independent wrestling right now is at risk, and if we don't go above and beyond, we might
Yep.
not continue independent wrestling. It could get shut
mhm.
down completely. We need to
Mm-hmm.
do what needs to be done so that independent wrestling can continue, so that Matt can continue to have this pipeline, which I want to go back to January and I want to read some of the names on that card for the pipeline that you're talking about because I just want to read them. I'm not, it's the pat on the back because the pipeline is exactly, I think, what you've built. You've started to build this pipeline from your product. Alan Angels, he had a match. Uh, Brett Eisen defeated Gary J. I mean, Gary J has been on fire this year. I mean, he's a hot commodity, and Brett Eisen for that matter too has had some
Mm-hmm.
amazing matches. Danny Jordan, obviously, Danny Jordan getting up to
Mhm.
AEW, a huge piece of that. Warhorse, who is like the number one independent name out there. Um, Kurt Stallion, who's blowing up right now in NXT. Bobby Flacco, who's had a little bit of a spot in 205 Live, and I feel like he's right there
Mm-hmm.
in Bobby Flacco. And then Kevin Koo, one half of the two-time tag team champions of independent tag team champions of the year in Violence. I mean,
and
that
he
is
just
just
recently and he just recently debuted with Dom Guarini on MLW Major League Wrestling.
yep.
So that's something that of course was in the works for some time, but COVID has slowed a lot down. But they're both in very good spots in Major League Wrestling. Um, I it's just a testament when you put, I'm very selective who I let on my shows and let into my locker room. I'm
Yep.
very selective with who I book. I, you know, it's especially now, it's a very tough time, but I'm still selective. I'm not interested in having dramatic issues that I've seen plague other promotions come over here.
Yeah.
I hear plenty of drama going on in, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama locker rooms that aren't mine. And the what we've had in action has been very, very little in comparison to other spots. And I'm definitely not going to talk about any of it, but I try to keep it a very easygoing professional locker room because the first part of professional wrestling is professional.
Yep. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what's interesting about that card that I just read off was the difference in some of those styles and some of those wrestlers. It feels like when you're building a card, you tend to kind of pick a little bit from every style and every area to kind of make it different as you go throughout an event and a card. What goes into that? What are you thinking? Obviously, there's storyline and there's draw and how you're pulling people in, but what goes into your mindset when you're building one of these cards out and trying to put matches together?
Well, when I broke in, the standard was the first match would be, the green guys, the young guys, and things would progress upward. I don't know if this is a good visual here, but things would progress upward, and I don't believe in a slow rolling. I don't believe in a slow unfolding show. I believe in peaks and valleys. To me, the most important match on a show is the first match. Dylan Hales, my co-booker and commentator, he believes the most important match is the first half main event. Notice that neither of those matches are in the second half,
Right.
and I think
Mhm.
you can realistically believe that by the time you get to a second half, you know, if you it's peaks and valleys. I don't want to just backload, the last two or three matches onto a second half and have it, and hope the first half is good. I like to start out with a real banger match for a first match, and a lot of times we may come back a little bit with a second match. Now, just to be on a show of mine is an accomplishment. When I say bring it back a little bit, I'm more talking necessarily about match times. I don't think you're going to, I'm not going to start with, all right, the first match is going to be 6 minutes, then 7 minutes, then 8 minutes. And, the longest match, usually the longest match on my show is not the main event. Um, that's it really just depends on how everything comes together because you want to have a peak for first half main. You want to send people out to intermission like with a holy shit, whether it's off of the finish of a match or off of an angle, a storyline you do, whatever bit that is. You want it to have a first, you want to have a first half that can stand on its own. People go to intermission, talk for 10 or 15 minutes, come back in, and then you also need to have something that can bring them right back in because you've just had hopefully some sort of emotional high point. Then you send everybody to go buy a Coke and have a cigarette, and then you ask them to come back in, and sometimes it can be a little slow coming back from a second half of a show. I could even tell watching some shows with an intermission cutout on IWTV. It's like, all right, this is where they took their intermission, but you can tell how the crowd is. So as far as it goes, you want to definitely have peaks and valleys. I think is the best way to answer a question about card construction, um, and that can have a lot to do with match times.
Mhm.
That can have to do with trust in who you're putting in there. It can have to do with name quality of a wrestler and how good a match is going to be, because there's can be varying quality of wrestlers. It's that's not a reflection on them, but somebody who's been in the business for a couple of years is going to come off very differently than somebody who's been working independence for 10 or 15 years. That's just how it is. That's just how it's going to be. Um, so you have to keep all those things in mind. I've made mistakes. Um, the biggest mistake I made with show construction was, to me personally, in 2019 when I undervalued myself. When I had my in-ring comeback and I put myself too early on a show, and it should have been right before the main event. I mean, that's how it happens. I at least made the mistake not being egotistical and trying to put myself on late. Um, it hurt. There's different things that can hurt match quality, and you know what? No matter what decision you make in putting a show together, you may be wrong. You may have two bad choices. If you get dealt, 15 in blackjack, whether you stand or hit, you can still lose the hand.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just came up with that right now. I hope
That's
that's a
pretty
good
good.
analogy.
That's good. I have no idea. I'm terrible at blackjack, so that's okay. I,
I'm a big time gambler, and the E Network is running a every episode ever marathon of Las Vegas. So I'm getting a lot of gambling fixes.
that's that's good. I think. Like
Sure.
I'm not sure if that's I'm not sure if getting a gambling fix is a good thing.
I said I was a gambler, not a degenerate gambler.
Oh, okay. Big difference.
There
Big
you go.
difference. I got you. Want to say hi to Cabana Man Dan in the chat. Want to say thank you to Julius. I think that's Blase. Would you say it that way, Chuck? Julius
Oh,
Blase.
Yeah.
that's Adam. What's up,
So
Adam?
thanks for the follow. And Dan, thanks for hanging out while you're making some stress balls. That's interesting.
Yep.
But I want to go. So let's go to February and let's go to $2,500 versus hair. And I'm not even going to I'm not going to say any matches or anything because I feel like this was one of your proudest moments as the CEO of Action Wrestling. I feel like for you, $2,500 versus hair, that was like when you try to grab that moment as a wrestler, I felt like you grabbed it as the CEO of Action
Well,
Wrestling that night.
and what's funny about you bringing that up was we asked Matt about like what was one of his favorite matches that he had ever promoted, and of course now we have 9 more that came after our interview. But that match was one of Matt's favorites that he had put on.
I think that show has an incredible stretch of some of the best wrestling we've ever done. I think that especially from our first half main event, which was a 6 man feud with Action Wrestling versus Southern
Team
Underground
Sup.
Pro.
Yep.
Yep, Action versus Sup, which had a shocking finish, and the crowd. AC Mack was pinned, and AC Mack had not been pinned in Action in a year and a half, and the crowd went real quiet. It got real. I mean, this is a jam-packed building. I've got bleachers, I've got chairs, everything's full, and the crowd went real quiet to the point where after the match, I went up to Team Action, uh, AC Mack, Sean Dean, and Alan Angels, and that was on. I wasn't supposed to. I was just like, "Hey guys, just milk this for a sec. Y'all good? Okay." Because it was like, okay, crap. We're having, when you can make a crowd absolutely stone cold quiet, that's a different feeling than having them all going ape shit and losing their minds. But that's also a moment you can take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that very well. We did that 6 man, went to intermission. We came back and we had Manders versus JD Drake, which was holy shit. I never want to upset either of those men so that they hit me hard. Then we did B Boy and Ben Carter, and then we had Matt Sells and Eric Royal, which was the aforementioned $2,500 versus hair match, which uh, it didn't come across as well uh, on camera. We literally had $2,500 in ones, which was Eric Royal's bounty that he put up with 25, literally a shoot $2,500. We actually booked somebody to be a part of it, but really one of the things they were supposed to do was guard the money.
This is money, like real money.
Now remember, in my small town, I mean, I got the police chief his numbers in my phone. So if somebody were to be trying to be stupid and rip us off, they would be in for a very bad time. I also went to the local barber shop and I got legitimate, not just you can buy it at Walmart, legitimate hair cutting materials.
Mm-hmm.
Scissors, the towel, and clipper, a couple different clippers. And this barber let me borrow. He's like, "Here, take all this stuff. This is what you would need." I'm like, "What would I need if I was gonna have to take somebody with long hair and shave their head and cut it all off?" So he gave me all this stuff. So we had set up where fans could come in and see, and I do have some pictures of it. You have $2,500 in a plastic locked bin, and then you have all this barber equipment. So people are coming in, and it's like, oh shit, these are real stipulations. And I was told by most fans they thought that Matt Sells was going to get his head shaved that night. So, but there was not that was the consensus, but it was either way. It was definitely, especially when people saw money and saw legitimate haircutting stuff, they thought that one of those things was definitely going to happen. This wasn't like a stipulation that wasn't going to be followed or a stipulation that wasn't well built to.
Mhm.
So
It's that extra buy-in to the story aspect, seeing that there for us watching it or being that makes it real. It's oh crap. They're for serious right here.
and then if you watch it, and all of our stuff is on iwtv.live. If you watch it, Matt Sells, he had legitimately in 2019 not won a single match, and when it came time to end his reverse Goldberg streak, there were several promoters who wanted it, and he wanted his first win to be an Action, so we built this up. He took $100 in ones and he starts throwing it out to the crowd. So you have kids and adults, going for $100 in ones, and that was all legitimate money. And some of the fans brought up the dollar bills and had Matt sign them after the show. So there's $1 bills with Matt Sell's autograph around.
It's
That's
so
awesome.
cool. He's such the Pied
It's
Piper of that crowd. He's so amazing, and he gets the crowd riled up. And and
literally
you
a Pied Piper because,
oh
especially, when we had 200 fans, he would come in and he would be mobbed, and kids would follow him around, including my 5-year-old. You know, I
yeah.
I laugh because I see my 5-year-old standing in an Action Wrestling shirt, and he's in that swarm. So hopefully we can get back to that.
Now, what's interesting about this match is I don't know that anybody would have thought that where we are today from that $2,500 versus hair would that both wrestlers ultimately were going to propel themselves for the rest of the year. Now, obviously, there was a big lull in there,
Hmm.
but Matt's
Both
undefeated.
huge
Matt
win
Matt
streaks for
Matt
both of them.
hasn't lost this year anywhere, and Eric is on his way. Congratulations on the new baby girl, obviously,
Yes,
but
yes.
also he's
Hmm.
on his way to a big match coming up in February against your champion, AC Mack. So, how do you go from a winner and a loser in that match to both of them essentially having one of the best years in their wrestling careers they've ever had?
That's the example of, I think, of when you're able to book and you're able to put stuff together and elevate two wrestlers. It's not just a situation where it's going to be 50-50. You're going to elevate the winner and then the loser is going to be lessened. I've had a number of matches that I've talked about where somebody won, somebody lost, but both guys were elevated. Both guys had their standing um, raised. And
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the best example of that I've ever done is in August 2019. We had a match with Sean Dean, who had been in action 3 or 4 times, completely different look, different body. He hadn't been in with us for maybe 5 or 6 months, and he wrestled Benjamin Carter. And I'm going to answer your question that you asked with by talking about this match, Sean Dean and Ben Carter. So Ben Carter comes in, and I knew him. I was well familiar. It took a little while to get him in, and I put these two guys together because I had plans for both of them and had ideas. So I sold him on this fact. I'm like, look, we're not going to have a 10-minute match. We're going to have 6 minutes, and I want you to do the biggest things you can do, but not everything you can do. And then we're not going to put everything out there. And I wanted to leave it. And I'm like, if you guys trust me, and they did, neither of them were incredibly excited about the fact that I was going to have this match that they both thought could be real big, but have it go short. I'm like, look, I promise you, you bring the crowd up to crescendo, then take it home, and they're going to be like, holy shit, what about next time?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to them going, say, 12 to 15 minutes, and all right, well, we've seen everything. So by the time we get to Ben Carter and B Boy, they're ready to see everything that Ben Carter can do. When we get to that point where Sean Dean is in the top level feud, they know, they know some of what Sean Dean can do, and they want to see more. So it's just, it's just these type of matches are examples of building wrestlers. Eric Royal's challenging in a rematch. He's because he and AC Mack wrestled on our December show, Bangers Only, which is on iwtv, and there's going to be a rematch in February. But Eric Royals actually lost two big feuds in action. He lost his feud in a how do we put that? Was it a Falls Count Anywhere match with Fred Yehi, and then he lost the Matt Sells feud. But when you have somebody who's that talented, who has presence, who can talk, and is really good in the ring, then you can do a lot with him, and they're going to get to and stay at a very top level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Eric is. Um, he gained by being in a 20 plus minute main event. So people, even though he didn't win, people saw him at a star level again. So they know that's where he is. His first match on our very first show was in the second match, and no offense to anyone who's going to be in the second match of our next show, but Eric Royal's not a second match guy anymore.
Yeah, he's
Truth.
I
propelled
don't know if that
himself.
exactly I don't know if that exactly answers what you asked, but you can do things in ways that elevates everybody. I love the fact that we have hard problems like, all right, well, if you have seven matches, you're gonna have seven winners, seven losers. I don't like to do a lot of non finishes or double DQs or double counts or stuff like that. But we oftentimes it's like, all right, we got seven matches, but we want 10 guys to win.
Hmm.
So what do you do with what do you do that? That's how you get creative, and you end up trying to just elevate everybody, even elevate somebody by losing. From our last two shows, Chris, that you were at, versus Alex Kane in November and Cabana Man Dan in December, Damian Tangra
Oh
lost
yeah.
Hmm.
twice. He's had very good showings, and almost nobody knows who he is because he doesn't. He's not really out there yet, and he's been getting exposed through some of our shows. But he's elevated himself by in losing.
Yep.
So, there's lots of examples, but you have to be smart and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to put guys in that position where they can do that for you. Some promoters and bookers don't know how to book because you could have a guy win a match, but if it's a real shitty creative situation, they lose even by going over.
Yep.
And
And
I'm
I
not
think
going to call anybody out, but there are specific situations in my head. I'm not going to call anybody out, but there are specific independent wrestling situations in my head that have happened this year that fit that bill.
and I think Chris and I both said when we talked to Dan last week, I think Chris, you brought it up. We both thought both those guys got over in that match. And I mean, even I think it was it Logan Creed and Orion Bishop
Mm-hmm.
when they got like a standing ovation at the end of the match almost with the
Those two
people
big
there.
hosses. Woo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they both looked strong. They both looked good. There was a winner, there was a loser, but both of the guys got over.
they did, and that was it, and that's a credit to both wrestlers because they went out and worked their asses off. The only reason you haven't seen Orion Bishop back is just because he twisted his knee. He's taken a little bit of time off, but he's somebody who we only had him booked for one show, but he earned future spots based off of that. Came in highly recommended, and we want to use him again. We just haven't been able to because he's injured.
Hmm.
Um, so he will be back in 2021 for sure. But that match was like, it has to do with it has to do with the construction of the match and how you put it out there for fans to see. Sometimes there will be squashes, and I think there should be examples of squashes and matches that go 2-3 minutes. There shouldn't be that many of them, and in certain situations you're not necessarily going to have everybody get over and look good. um, but when you have a situation that's like, all right, hey, we're going to have Logan and Bishop go 7 minutes and they're going to have an absolute war, and here's what we want to do, and it's like, that match, even though I had high expectations for Logan Creed versus Orion Bishop, and Logan Creed looks very similar to a guy on MLW TV, I will say, another 7 foot guy,
Similarities.
uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, who's wrestling against Hammerstone. That just looks, he has a lot of similarities to him. Um,
It's a bit of a
but
dream match if you think about it. If those two would ever be in the same ring, that's a pretty good match. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but that's a situation where I had high expectations for the match, and then the match went out and exceeded all of them, which was fantastic.
Mhm.
It's and that was, you were there, Chris. That was in front of 35 people. Imagine if that was in that building in front of 200.
And
Roof. You'd be paying for a new roof.
but this is what I want to point out, because 35 people did not feel like 35 people in that match. It felt much bigger because I feel like indie wrestling had to elevate itself this year, because it was I don't want to say exposed, but as a negative connotation, but it was exposed to the point where the wrestling really had to matter. and it had to be really good because there was such a valuable point where there's little to no fans, and
Hmm.
you don't have even the little bit of production you used to have is gone almost because you don't have the crowds, you don't have the noise. So I feel like wrestling's even better because of how bad this year's been, that you couldn't have people there. 35 people felt like 300 people because we were so into that match, spot after spot. Logan's in the front row. Bishop might have killed him, we thought at one point. It even said that, I killed him, I killed him. Like, there was so many great moments, and you hear every moment now too.
Hmm.
Like, indie wrestling is great because you get close and you can hear it, but now you can even hear it on IWTV. It's I feel like wrestling somehow, and I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but somehow benefited from this pandemic and the fact that they couldn't have as many matches and as many events. It just seems like something's changed for the better, and 2021 could be something big if we get back to normal.
I think so much of it is a sink or swim mentality. You have, you know, every show, I tell everybody, all my wrestlers, as especially for the new ones coming in who haven't wrestled, I'm like, look, they don't know you. There's 35 people. They're probably not going to react. Don't let it throw you. It's the important part. If they don't react, don't let it throw you. Keep going, and doing what you're doing. You're not going to get the same reactions because there's not, 200, 250 people there. So you have a lot of wrestlers who can work in that environment
Mm-hmm.
because they know and they have that cerebral understanding that people can still watch on IWTV. You can still have a match that's technically as good. Some wrestlers
Hmm.
who aren't ready to wrestle in front of 35 people, we might as well be, that's what we're drawing. I know other places have different numbers, but we're doing 35 people because that's what our town, we run a town building, that's what they allow, and we're okay with that because we're still thriving. But you have a certain, we're essentially doing studio tapings. What type of wrestlers can succeed in that environment? Um, to absolutely no surprise, two wrestlers who've done well in this environment are JD Drake and Anthony Henry. And why? Because their in-ring game was already good. Connecting with people was already good. They're gonna have the good matches that are gonna register, and they have that seasoning where they've wrestled in so many different buildings in so many states that is not going to throw them to not have that immediate type of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who's been in the ring, you might do something and you don't hear the fans react. That may, all right, well, we got to try something different. We got to speed it up. We got to slow it down. We got to, I try to emphasize to everyone, like, look, just because you don't get the reaction, it doesn't mean they're not into it. It just means they're not clapping. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that a minute or 2 minutes into a match you're dead. They may be completely popping at minute 6 or 7. Logan Creed versus Orion Bishop, like you just brought up, that was both men's first match in action. That was their debut, and after the bell rings, I love the call that Dylan hails because he goes on for like a minute screaming about how, hey, this is, action's the big leagues. There's, if you bring weak ass shit here, you're not going to make it. And it's that I'm not going to mention names, but we've had some wrestlers who came in the 35 fan aspect and they didn't really work out. That's okay. They're just not ready yet. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
slam. It's just a harsh reality that not everybody's ready to be at the type of level I see action wrestling at. I
Mm-hmm.
don't consider us a starting wrestler level promotion. You've got to be out and cut your teeth and be able to produce in other places and then step it up to come in here. That's the way that I see it. That's not any sort of, I'm not trying to make a slam because there's, so many wrestlers that you could book. I mean, I could fill up a show with 60 or 70 wrestlers if I had spots for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I don't have a budget, but just because a certain wrestler isn't being, booked on a show, it's not a reflection on them. It's just different masters, and different creative ideas, and I'm only going to run so many angles.
Yep.
and storylines.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you overdo it and inundate the fans with so much, like, all right, we got two stip matches and we got this over here, and it's all in the same fucking show, you're gonna burn your crowd out. And it's like, all right, well, what are you gonna do next time? Set somebody on fire? I mean, there are promotions doing that, and I just think that's
Yeah,
I think
that's. I
that's
mean,
hilarious.
that's different. That's their cup of tea, and that's what they
Yeah.
feel like doing. And I, so I'm gonna jump in here. You mentioned Dylan. I want to talk about commentary, and I want to talk about how we've had some conversations, Matt, you and I, about commentary and how it plays such a big part in the product. And I just want you to kind of talk about your commentary team and how I think they take action to a whole nother level when it comes to at the show, because you can hear them at the show with the 35 people, and on IWTV. What does that mean to you, the part that commentary plays in your product?
I mean, they're your storytellers. You know, we have lots of people who, when a show premieres on IWTV, or just or goes up, we have, and we can see it on Twitter. We have different engagement. We have people who hit the hashtag, or at us on Twitter, and it's like, hey, I'm just checking them out, and I like what I'm seeing. So they're not going to go back and watch 2.5 years. They may, but they're not doing it right now, and they shouldn't have to be able to understand this match that they're watching right now. So it's up to, right now our commentators are Dylan Hales and Jumpin' Johnny Mosley,
Oh, Johnny.
and they do a fantastic job. And I'll be perfectly honest, both of them have a better knowledge base on independent wrestling right now. Pre-COVID, we had Stephen McCash, who's done commentary at Southern Underground Pro, and he did a great job. He decided not to travel, post COVID, and so John Mosley came in, and he's done a fantastic job. He does a lot of homework, and he does commentary here, New South, Southern Underground Pro, TWE. He's he's done a lot, so his learning curve has increased. So when you have people who are knowledgeable about not just action wrestling, because I don't want us to be one singular, nothing matters outside of here promotion. I want us to be one piece of the larger puzzle. What happens in Southern Underground Pro, what happens at other IWTV shows matters.
Mm-hmm.
It matters if you have a wrestler that was just on a very successful live stream a month ago. Brett Eisen wrestled Eddie Kingston on the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that matters. That happened not in an action ring, but it happened in our universe because we're part of the larger IWTV universe. And if I assume that every fan who's watching one of our shows is also watching other shows on IWTV and knows about it, and they want to be inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So they also want to be told what is happening here. Why is Eric Royal getting a rematch against AC Mack? Why is Graham Bell doing what he's doing? He's a mercenary. He's getting paid to do something. Why are heels acting this way? Why is Shug Dunkerton, who was, at the beginning of the year, a straight laced performer, who was touring England, and now he's lost his fucking mind at action shows? Why is that happening? I don't know on that one. Maybe you can tell me. I know you talked to him.
We're just as puzzled as you are, Matt.
Yeah.
I
But it's the why of everything that matters, because I can just go ahead and match wrestlers up all day, but it doesn't necessarily lead to anything or spring from anything if Dylan and Mose aren't connecting all those pieces and talking about what happened in Alabama, what happened in Tennessee, what happened at TWE, Total Wrestling Entertainment, that Jade Newman runs up in the Chattanooga area. If
Mhm.
all those things don't matter, if all those pieces don't come together, then you're just a single standalone show, and you don't really matter outside of your own hometown, and nothing matters after the final bell until the next show.
Mhm.
Like I see Action Wrestling having a show for a live crowd. It's taped, and then it has its second life a week or so later when it drops on IWTV. So I see us having two audiences. We have fans who have been watching our shows for years who've probably never been in the state of Georgia. That's very cool to me.
Yeah.
So if you just have that, we know plenty of promotions. Uh, there's one I'm certainly not about to mention and give them any sort of clout, but they think that they're the most important thing in the state, and they aren't.
Well, Val wanted to shout
And
out
that's
the
a,
commentators, changing the subject, and Val wanted to just shout out the commentators too about just how. And again, it's just another piece of the puzzle, Matt, that I think you do a really good job with your team putting together a good product, and like you said, not only for the live crowd, but the second viewing audience that gets to watch on IWTV using promo code action.
Like me, because I'm stuck in Pennsylvania.
I'm getting better at that, Matt. Right?
yes.
You're gonna have your own promo code soon, Chris.
Matt doesn't want that. Matt wants me to use his promo
I,
code.
I'm more than happy to have you plug my promo code. I'm more than happy. I promise you this. But I mean, things like that. Every little bit helps. With wrestling, it's not just about with 35 fans. I did elevate. I did have to bump up ticket prices. I hate that. I do have to depend on sponsors more, but you know, uh, things like promo codes and having hours viewed, getting that monthly check-in from IWTV for what we did. Uh, we have merchandise. Hey, I'm wearing this shirt. It's
Look at that!
available.
Look at that shirt. How
I love
cool
it.
is this new shirt? I will be picking mine up this Friday. I will be picking mine up and yours too, Captain, on this
Oh,
Friday.
I
And
get one too.
Yeah,
you can pick one of these up, the GI Joe Action Wrestling inspired shirt. It's at shopiwtv.com. You have
I
action
typed
out
that in.
there with other promotions like Beyond Wrestling,
Yep.
SUP, AIW. That's very cool to me. But please shop iwtv.com. We have this both in short and long sleeve.
Such a cool shirt.
I love it.
So you got
Very well.
Nebraska and Massachusetts in the chat saying they are both obviously action wrestling fans and hope to get out to a show. But yes, you definitely have people from all over the country being able to watch action wrestling. Is a very cool thought.
I hope so.
Mm.
Definitely want people from Massachusetts in because I'm initially from Massachusetts myself. So,
We'll
it's
allow it.
You're such a jerk.
you're a sponsor, so I can't talk back to you, and you
This
know
is
that.
true. This is true.
Matt, you just message me what you want me to say to him, and I'll say it for you.
He'll just put me to work on Friday. Don't worry.
Yeah, make him set up the ring. I mean, come on, make this guy work.
Okay, Chris, you're gonna have to help set up the ring on Friday.
Okay.
He's like, yeah, sure, sounds good.
Matt, honestly, Matt, like being able to show up early to shows and see what you do and see the hustle that you and the team puts on and people that are getting there early to help and doing it the right way, like people that want to get in your ring and doing it the right way, showing up early, helping out anywhere they can, putting the ring together, working on a tryout match, whatever they need to do to get in front of you and get their name in front of action wrestling, or I should say action wrestling on top of them so that they get a logo on top of them. It's nice to see that people are doing it the right way.
That's how. And I've told this story before, but that's how Bobby Flacco got in. Um, Flacco came to our second or third show, and said, "Hey, I'm gonna come. Is that okay?" Yeah, yeah, of course. And I don't know if I'll have anything for you. He got a spot in a scramble match. He got a couple other spots. He was there early, helping out, and eventually, I was able to see his talent, and he earned a spot in. Um, and the last few shows, we've essentially had 4 dates doing double headers. Um, since September, and Damian Tangra's one. He came September, October. It's like, all right, what time is setup? So when it came time, and I already used Damian on a show. He did our future show in 2019.
Hmm.
He did a show for us in 2019 in action, And when it comes time to like, all right, I got something. It's a small spot, but he's one of the first ones I'm going to think of. And then he just makes me look like a complete friggin' genius because he has two great matches with Alex Kane and Cabana Man Dan. And
Mm-hmm.
short matches can be very difficult to get over because you don't have the opportunity to show a lot. So if you have 2.5 minutes and you can figure out, all right, how can I get over so that's like people want to see more,
Hmm.
whether it's a winning or losing effort, that's very difficult. It's a lot harder to have a 2.5 minute match than it is to have an 8 minute match. It's not a traditional match structure, and you have to be able to do something to impress, to show that you have something more without it being a squash at times. So, um, it's the worst part. I will say, Chris, as you know, as I've probably said to you, the worst part about being at a show is that I never have enough time to talk one on one with everybody.
You try to.
Whether it's
You try
we
to.
try, whether it's
This guy,
fans,
he
sponsors,
runs
wrestlers.
around and he'll be like, "How's the show?" He'll just all of a sudden he'll be like right next to you and he'll whisper in your ear very subtly, "How's the show? You enjoying yourself? How's the show?" And then he flies out of there to the next, whatever the next spot is that he has to get to. So, I you're trying. I know you are, but I feel like, do you ever get a moment to just breathe and enjoy what you're doing?
I can't even say at the end of the night, um, because at the end of the night, teardown has to happen,
Hmm.
and we have to be out of the building. I don't have a situation. I get to enjoy it usually about with 2 or 3 matches left on the show, because essentially you're on autopilot. You've either you've either done your job time wise, and you've got the wrestlers set up with what they need to do. Um, Sometimes I'm able to. For example, Kyle Matthews and Anthony Henry. It was a first half main event, and they're not guys I'm going to have any issue with. Like, hey, here's your time. You know, those guys are two professionals that I've been in locker rooms with when I was a wrestler. So that match, it's like, all right, after this match, all we're doing is announcing intermission.
Hmm.
I told them post match, because this was a very big deal for them. You know, do whatever you want. This is what the instructions that they're given and asked to do. It's very very limited for that match, which is kind of rare. But they had carte blanche to do basically whatever they wanted in their post match. Um, I don't let a lot of wrestlers talk on the microphone for a multitude of reasons. But that match, it's like, all right, after this, I know the only thing we have to do is take 10-minute intermission. So I stood and make sure, where I can be accessible. But I stood to make sure I watched that match. Um, Usually at the end of the night, I'm able to relax somewhat and watch the last couple matches. But then when it's over, I got to kick into another gear, because it's like, all right, you got to do teardown. You got to take down concessions. Thankfully, I have a lot of fans who will help jump in and tear down the ring, along with some of the wrestlers who tear down in the ring crew. So that's usually fairly quick. But hey, I got to take promos. Some wrestlers I barely get to talk to at my own shows. Um, and it's just the way it is. Whoever I'm talking to at any given point in the night, there's usually somebody else I need to talk to and something else I need to be doing at the moment. But that's just how it is. So sometimes I enjoy it.
Sometimes.
I'll remind you on Friday to enjoy
Good luck with that.
I mean, he has to. It's a birthday show,
Yes, I'll be
right?
29. I'll be
Exactly. You
29.
have to enjoy that show.
Well, I should be able to, because we're not going to be on super time constraints, because it's not a double header like we normally do.
it. Right, just one
We're
show.
just doing one show. So I've been able to make certain things easier with the way I do things logistically. This, since we don't have a second show afterwards, we should be pretty okay.
With whatever happens, because no one knows. No one knows. They'll never know.
The only things I will say is Eric Royal, as he specifically said he isn't coming in, and congratulations to the Ace God on the birth of his daughter today. So Eric Royal will not be there. He's challenging AC Mack for the Action Championship in February,
Yep.
and I put out on Twitter that Shug D will not be wrestling either. So because who knows what's up with Shug D.
Yeah, those are the only two for sure at this point.
Chris, you'll be there. That's a for sure.
I'll be there. I don't plan on wrestling, but I'll be there.
Oh, that would be
It's
funny. I would like to see
it's
that.
it's a surprise show, so don't let's not exclude anything.
True.
Let's exclude some things.
Now, Matt, you guys have been rocking and rolling since September when you finally were able to come back. Do you have a either a favorite match or a favorite show in those nine that you have put on? And I know that you're not going to remember everything from every show, but was there something that was there a night that really stood out to you?
I really loved for a match. Some things that stood out. I loved Graham Bell versus Manders
Such a good
from our
match.
September doubleheader.
Hmm.
That was a real slobber knocker. I rewatched some of that recently. I love the funniest match to me that we've done is Nolan Edward and Angelus Lane in September. And the reason I say that's the funniest match is because it turned out so well. And the reason that match happened is because during the summer I went through something where I would just tweet random matches out. I wouldn't even tag wrestlers. I made the matches. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they said they've never wrestled in a singles match. And a bunch of different matches, but that was one of the ones I tweeted out. And within 10 minutes, both of them had messaged me independently saying, "Can this happen?"
Let's do
That's awesome.
it.
And then it ended up being, I mean, it really doesn't come across on the IWTV version how violent it was because I was wincing like, oh my God, so often. Like it was described by a couple fans there as being the most violent match we've had in action. And it really, live, it really was because they were knocking the absolute shit out of each other. Um, I also loved I also loved Kyle Matthews and Anthony Henry because that's a match that they had for years. They had singles matches in Georgia that, for whatever reasons, because the a lot of matches just happen and then have no after effect in the southeast, and nobody saw. So I was glad we were able to bring an example of, that match. Yes, it was really good in action, but they've been doing, they've had so many matches over the last 15 years that you know people didn't really see. So to me, that was just a representative example that I hope other people would be like, wow, that was great, and maybe it inspired some to, some people to YouTube some of their previous stuff. As a show, what I most enjoyed because of all the aforementioned things was our futures showcase, because it wasn't in our Tyrone building.
Hmm.
We struck a deal in 2019 to co-promote the Action Scenic City Future Showcase, and then with everything being difficult this year, us not being able to have the Scenic City Invitational, uh, we have been working with TWE in Chattanooga, and TWE is also available on IWTV. Um, but we struck a deal to have our future showcase there. Jade Newman owns that building. That ring is set up all the time. There's a lot less work that needs to go into it because it's there, and they have a lot. The logistics are a lot different. So I was able to actually really enjoy that show, as opposed to some of our action shows in our home building where I have to be able to run off. Plus, the future showcase was great. Um, it's a different formula. It's three-way matches. Winner wins, advances to another three-way match, and the finals was Sean Dean, Adam Priest, and Nolan Edward, who won the future showcase.
Mhm.
We also had Logan Creed and O'Shea Edwards in a match that literally, I shit you not, literally broke the ring because there was a corner that we had to go tell all the guys after we heard something. We had to go look at it, and it was like, oh shit, the ring actually did break. So we had to tell the subsequent matches, um, don't do anything much in that corner because we don't know what'll happen.
And now
Way
Matt
to go,
So
checks all the
guys.
rings after Logan Creed matches.
Yeah, right.
Logan hits the ropes very hard,
Yeah, it does.
very hard.
The ring
He's
shifts. It
he's
shifts.
great. No, it literally does. Logan's great. He's an example of a guy who's been working at a top level in the state of Georgia, and a lot of people just don't really know it.
Mhm.
And hopefully, we're opening some eyes to what he can do.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some of the hard hitting matches, and I want to touch on a match from Bangers Only, which I feel like Bangers
There were
Only was on.
seven bangers on that show. There
It
were seven
was
bangers on that show.
Matt. It was on another level. You talk about the peaks and valleys of a show. That was just peak. Like everybody was trying to outdo the match before them and prove that nobody could go on after them. I want to touch on Kevin Koo and Kevin Ryan because
That match
holy hell, the beating that Kevin Ryan took from Kevin Koo. That
that
I
match is that match summed up as a meme is the "you want to see a dead body"
Yeah.
meme. Stand by me, because holy shit! Uh, now Kevin Ryan he's had a hell of a run. He's lost 4 matches, but he's had Nolan Edward, Fred Yehai.
Hmm.
He was in a 4-way scramble match with Graham Bell, Sean Christopher, and Braden Lee, who Braden Lee is going to be a much bigger superstar in the next 6 months than he is now.
Yep.
And then he wrestled Kevin Koo. I'm sorry, I interrupted your thoughts, but holy fuck, that was like a murder going on.
And I feel like you're I don't know, is I know he's brain dead, but I mean,
Yes.
what's next? I like the guy just keeps taking a beating, and that match again, it was another one of those matches where two guys, not both of them win, but both of them get over. I mean, Kevin Koo looked amazing, looked strong, such incredible strikes, and coming on top and not laying off of Kevin Ryan, and Kevin Ryan not giving up. I mean, the referee had to stop it just because
Hmm.
he needed to stop it, because every single time Kevin tried to fight back, Koo would chop the hell out of him. It was echoing everywhere, and I don't know what's next for Kevin Ryan, other than trying to get one in the win column.
Well, one of
Leading,
the things
leading.
that Kevin Ryan's he's been in the wrestling business for like 5 years, but he's only 22 years old. So he's like a 22-year-old veteran, and he is a he's a great kid, but he's not somebody who's had the best coaching and upbringing in the business, and that's what we're trying to, well, quite literally beat into him. Um,
Quite literally. Yes.
and this isn't anything I haven't said to him personally, but he's one of the guys in the southeast that has a lot of talent. He has the ability to get some eyes on him, but there are there are things that we want to kind of retrain him. I didn't bring him in initially to be like, all right, we're going to beat the shit out of you for 4 shows in a row, but we wanted to literally.
It's gonna be 5, actually.
We wanted. It's a surprise show next time. I'm not saying shit to you.
We're gonna keep trying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's our job to keep trying.
The secret is that I'm not going to book the show till 6 o'clock when I see who's in the locker room. So that's why I can't give anything away. I'm just going to put a sheet out and just be like, all right, who you want to wrestle?
Here's a sign-in sheet.
Yeah.
I have the ring. from eight
Maybe we'll
o'clock
shoot
to
draw
eight
names out of
twenty.
the hat. Just have have every all the wrestlers stand by the entranceway when they hear their music. It's like they're up.
That would
But
be awesome.
Kevin Ryan went from somebody, we're trying to get him, and I think Kevin Koo as an opponent really brought that out of him. Give it back when you have a wrestler who's hitting you hard. Make sure you give it back.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you um, get to this level of physicality, and that's what for better or worse, that's what wrestling has turned into. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're trying to break someone's nose. It doesn't mean you're trying to shoot drop somebody on their head, but you want to have a wrestler in a place where they will be reactive and have it be a competition, have it be a fight. And I think if you were to go specifically and watch not just the matches, but watch Kevin Ryan in particular in his 4 matches from September on, you would see a mark, a definitely marked improval.
Mm-hmm.
Am I even saying that right? A marked level of improvement. He done got better
Yes.
from from each show, and that's something that is within him. When you get hit, you've got to give it back. Your level of offense has to be believable, and he's been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that match with Kevin Koo was something that Koo asked for the match, by the way. So I know that Koo sees something in Kevin Ryan that can be brought out, but it's so hard to describe in that you have to have trust in the other person that they're going to be there and they're not going to shrink away from a strike. And if you do a flip into the air, if you do a moonsault, if you're giving them trust that you trust they are not going to move and they will catch you when you're coming at them. And I think that Kevin Ryan has definitely in our action group the last 4 years, or excuse me, 4 months, has earned that reputation that he will be there for somebody, and he stepped up his game, and he knows it. And I've said all these things to him personally. So I think 2021 is potentially very very bright for him, whether it's here, whether it's at New South, or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Mania. Kevin Mania? Kevin
Kevin
Mania.
Mania.
Kevin
Kevin
Mania.
Mania.
Julius Blase decided to call it Kevin Mania.
That was
So,
one that really was one hell of a match when I was
oh
watching it live. I'm like, oh my god.
yeah, it was loud. It was that was heavy, heavy handed that match.
It's a great show when you have people bring several matches, and whether they watch it live or on IWTV, and they have several matches. They're like, oh, that was match of the night,
That wasn't
as
yeah.
opposed
What
With
to
I'm
that
just
show, I
one.
mean, yeah.
that as far as I'm concerned, they're all match of the night. They all had their own way of standing on their own.
Hmm.
And we would have a whole other podcast talking about each one of the matches from Bangers Only. Like that was just a well put together first half of
Flacco's
the night there.
match.
The
Flacco's match
Flacco
that night.
match,
Holy
and
shit.
but not just we're just gonna put you over here, Matt. So just hang tight. So Flacco Flacco's match wasn't just the fact that Adrian
Adrian
Alanis
Alanis.
and Flacco did an amazing job, but how about Liam Gray
Oh man,
playing
on
the
the outside.
crowd on the outside, adding to that match so much because it was already a great match, and then he made it an amazing match
Hmm.
because he put the storytelling all together with that match. So like that match was ridiculous. Easily the match of the night. I had little ones around me telling me it was match of the night. But then I'll go
See,
tell you one of the other matches were match of the night.
and see, that's the great thing is it was that was match of the night to some people, and then I had several others, which is the best feeling that I can have. Like, I love it when people are so gushing and so positive about a show. Sometimes you will have a match that's very clearly, if it delivers, is going to be the match of the night. There's
Yeah.
plenty of shows I've had where it's like, if everything happens like it's supposed to, this one match will be the pinnacle that everyone sees, and you may know that going in. But this was very much a show that it's like, I don't have throwaway matches on shows. I don't have throwaway spots. If you get a spot, I on a show as a wrestler, whether it's if it's your first time coming in, especially, it's I see something in you. I want to take a look, uh, kick the tires, see if something's there, because and just because you're not booked the next show doesn't mean you won't be back, or doesn't mean I don't see something. Um, and not everybody, not everyone who gets a match is going to return, because they may not, it's not personal. They may not just do well, but um, as far as Liam Gray goes, if you want to see him one on one with Bobby Flacco, they wrestled on our August 2019 show, by the way. And Liam Gray is hilarious.
He's great.
I went I went to a WWA 4 show, AR Fox's training school, and I saw him and Fox wrestle for like 20 minutes on a student
Damn.
show in front of like 30 people, going all out, taking all the bumps and having a match as if it was packed in front of 600 people, streaming live on IWTV.
Sign me up for that match. Wow. Yeah. Well, anything with
So yeah,
AR Fox, sign me up for. But yeah, like Liam Gray just seems like he's got something in him that he could be something real special. And I didn't even get to see him in the ring yet. So
he's also very good in the ring.
yeah, man, I could just rattle down all these matches. Captain, you're gonna have to cut me off.
Well, what I want to know is, are we gonna see a number three of Cells Newman? That's what I want to know.
You mean number? You mean number two?
Well, or yeah, number two, but really number three.
Number two.
That's what
I'm
I
not
want to know.
I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid with Jaden Newman. I'm fully aware that he's cognizant. He has IWTV. He may not remember, but he knows he's wrestled Matt Sells twice and literally got headbanged into submission, and he got counted out of the ring by falling on his face.
Yep.
So I would imagine, I mean, you can't even call it a rubber match because Matt Sells won twice, but I would imagine that match happening again at some point.
Well, just I mean, I don't know anything. I know nothing. Matt tells me nothing. Like he said,
That
he's
is
not giving away
absolutely
anything.
confirmed true.
This is true. But Matt hasn't pinned Jaden. So
True.
then again, I don't know if Jaden has a better looking vest than he did last show. That's going to be the problem. How does he outdo himself with that amazing high quality vest that he wore that I may or may not have seen at a Hobby Lobby? But I'm just wondering if he has the gusto to
Oh.
bring out more ring attire than he's brought out already.
I don't talk to Jaden Newman about his ring attire, but uh, I would think that Jaden has a lot of potential for improvement in the next year.
Jaden is something else, and I kind of want to segue a little bit into the class of heels that I have, and obviously the term heels is the bad guys. So it's
Mhm.
the class of heels that Action Wrestling has introduced me to in Adam Priest, in Eric Royal, in
No, they're all
Jaden
nice
Newman.
guys. He's such a nice guy.
I I just want to point out that the ability to get over as a heel, people have said in the past it's easy to be the bad guy, but I feel like the people that I've been able to be exposed to with Action Wrestling, you have quite the crop of heels, and I used my words very carefully there. Call they're very good heels, and I think they played the crowd well, but they can also wrestle really well, and they're also really nice guys when it comes to willing to have a conversation with the bald monkeys.
As far as heels, I think that I will say, just because of how wrestling is, when you're starting out, it's easier to be a heel, even though as far as wrestling a match, it's theoretically more complicated because a heel is supposed to take the lead.
Mhm.
But a heel can also do anything. If a baby face comes out, ball of fire, the Kerry Von Erich in the 80s in Dallas, Texas. But if they do something like they slip and fall on their ass, they're done for.
Yeah, it's over.
A heel can do literally anything and just amplify it. there's no real mistakes the heel is going to make. So it's easier to be a heel, but it's very difficult to be a heel who matters and get to like a main event level, because you have to really access something that makes people hate you. Um, but that's also difficult. I mean, AC Mack after a year and a half was just being cheered by action fans, even though he was always a heel. He was always insulting, but he had the Ric Flair effect in the 80s, the Four Horsemen effect. He was just so cool and so good at what he did that people started to cheer him.
Mm-hmm.
So creatively, we just turned him face, sort of. We didn't. We just altered something so he could wrestle against other heels, but people cheer him now. It's okay to cheer him. Um, and the other interesting thing is, as far as being heels, um, a heel can be very different in front of 250 people instead of in front of 35 people. Not necessarily something I would have thought about in February versus September, but heels can play differently, because I don't have a crew of like 100 kids at shows.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some kids at shows, but it's not like it was, who are just gonna, you know, the action fans can be the best in wrestling, because if they don't like something, they're not going to give you the "you fucked up" chant, or boring or anything like that. They're just gonna sit there, but they will, for the most part, boo the heels and cheer the baby faces,
Mm-hmm.
which is the style of. I mean, I want there to be actual hatred towards the heels. I don't, for the most part, want it to be like both these guys, both these guys. Sometimes I do. Sometimes we do babyface versus babyface, and it works out great. Lots of times I do that actually, but that's like supposed to be like a competition, and it actually accents the fact that when we have heels like Eric Royal, they are really good at what they do, and people should hate them. And I don't want to have a thing where we just have so many cool heels that get cheered. That
Yeah,
becomes
it's overkill.
difficult.
Yeah.
And then you may turn your baby face slightly from a top level baby face to like, well, they're getting the heel that they're wrestling, who people are supposed to hate, is getting cheered. It becomes an awkward situation.
I just love
I don't know if
heels.
I answered that accurately, but to me,
I love heels.
strong baby faces and strong heels are important in wrestling.
Yeah. Adam Priest to me is
God,
my
he's such a dick.
I sorry not sorry. Like, yeah, I know I've tweeted it a bunch of times. Adam Priest is awesome. There's
No,
just
he's extremely
in
he's
ring
extremely good. He's
ability.
one of those.
He reminds me so much of like the 90s wrestling that I fell in love with wrestling again
Mm-hmm.
with that. And again, he's the way he's not a character. He's Adam Priest. He's him. That's who he
If
is.
if you look at the September and October shows, we had Adam Priest versus Hardway Heater on our September Tonight in This Very Ring with Matt Sell show, and then he
Mhm.
wrestled Eric Martin, who was a Super 8 competitor on IWTV. He wrestled him on the first Friday Night Fight show. If you watch those two matches, you can see, just watching Adam Priest, the way he moves around the ring, there's little wasted motion. He's a heel, but he's not a showboater. He
Mm-hmm.
will take as few steps as possible to take that drop kick in, and drive his boots into the back of your head. He will climb the ropes as quick as possible to give you that frog splash, and then put you into his submission finisher instantly.
He's awesome.
There's no wasted motion, and it's really remarkable to watch.
Mhm.
If you pay attention to that, it's really something to watch. He is
So
just very
it,
talented.
I know he's only doing exhibitions for you at the moment. Fred Yehi, I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything. Anything
Nothing.
in the future for these two? See, he's telling us nothing.
We get
Nothing,
nada.
guys. Nothing.
Nada.
Nothing. Nothing. So let's just get to it. Let's just get to it, Chuck. Let's just
Wait,
get
what
to
are
the
we getting
down and
to?
dirty.
Wait, are we
What
gonna
do we
Let's
find
get to?
out? Wait, are we gonna find out if they're gonna sell Grant Bell's bazooka? at the next action show, like the replicas? Because I'm all in for that one. I'm
Yeah.
making my own. I'm making my own.
That would be a great replica. So, as you guys know, I mean, the January 8th show is a mystery show.
We have no idea. No idea
Oh,
what
I'm
I'm
sorry.
walking into
Legit,
Friday.
no clue.
I'm sorry. That was the end of my plug. I'm not continuing further. It will premiere on IWTV on Thursday night, January 14th,
Mhm.
and at that point, you will have known. And feel free to tweet about it. It's just, it's just something fun we're doing, a mystery show, because January 8th is my legit shoot birthday, and I thought that this would be, if I was ever gonna do a mystery type of show, this would be a good reason, excuse, opportunity to do it.
It's a very cool concept. I look forward to showing up Friday and seeing who's there and who's in the locker room and what the sign up sheet looks like. I don't know if I'm going to have to sign a waiver or anything. Is there?
Do you want me to flip this around, because I got potential lineup right here?
No, I
Oh,
don't. I actually don't, because this is and this is complete honesty right now. Matt tells me very little. As a sponsor, we are happy to be sponsors of Action Wrestling. We love Matt. We love Action Wrestling. We don't know anything going into a show. We don't know anything coming out of a show. And we love it that way because we are wrestling fans at our core, and we want to continue to be wrestling fans. So, Matt, I appreciate you feeding into that and allowing not only us, but I'm sure all the viewers to just enjoy wrestling for what it is, which is great entertainment.
I do wonder a lot. I wonder a lot
He
about what's
wonders way
what's
too
what's
much.
going to happen. I do. I do. I do.
You can feel free to tweet about it and tag the Action account, and I'll retweet it and answer none of those questions.
It'll have those emoji eyes
what's in
looking.
What's in the envelope? What's in the envelope?
What's in the envelope?
What's in the envelope? We
Graham
don't
Bell
know.
won't show anybody.
We don't know.
Ask Graham.
Matt, do you
Ask
even
Graham
know?
Bell
Do you even know,
at
Matt?
Merc with a main. That letter or whatever it was, that was not addressed to me.
It's illegal to read other people's mail. So yeah, I get that.
It is.
So
You know, there's you know there's I like there to be mystery. I like there to be wonder, because if you know where everything is going,
Oh, it's
um,
boring.
I have some, I have plenty of fans who want to guess and want to figure out, and it's like, I promise you, it is less interesting than you think, because by the time something happens, there won't be any wonderment or surprise. It's like reading Twitter while you're watching a wrestling show, except your live feed is 10 minutes behind. You're not going to be surprised because Sting shows up because you just saw it on Twitter, and now the surprise was ruined for you. I don't have Sting at the mystery show, I don't think.
you don't
I,
think?
But
I
but
just got word on what the main event is for the birthday, the mystery show. I did.
mm-hmm,
I did.
mm-hmm.
It's Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik because they
Oh,
have some Twitter beef going on.
oh dear
That's
God.
what it is.
The Sheik wants it. The Sheik's been asking for it. Hulk has
You
not been
say it.
responding.
I don't know where he lives now, but the Sheik actually used to live a town over from Tyrone, believe it or
Oh
not.
crap!
Yep.
Hmm.
Ooh,
He's not booked.
Interesting. Well, nobody's booked.
nobody's booked. Yeah.
Nobody's booked.
I told you, we'll see who shows up on Friday at around 6 o'clock, and
The hardest thing for me is going to be not prying into to get information from Christopher because he will be there and I won't.
do it,
And
do it.
he's not going to tell me anything.
Do it. The lineup is not going to be a surprise afterwards. I anticipate that things will leak out, and there's one match in particular that I'm very excited to be able to bring, um,
What
for
would that
for
be?
for reasons.
What would that be?
It would be this match right here that I'm
Damn.
pointing to with my pen.
This one.
This
right,
one here.
right here.
Yep. And there are reasons for that. That will become obvious on Friday night around 9 something.
You're just gonna watch my Twitter feed,
Nine.
because I'm sure I'm just gonna put, once I walk out, because there's terrible service inside that building. But when I walk to the doors,
Yeah,
I
I'm
will.
not getting. I'm maybe since you maybe I'll get you the Wi-Fi password for this show. Maybe
Ooh, ooh.
maybe.
Well, all I'm gonna tweet is like the emojis. It's not gonna be anything.
Yeah.
No pictures.
Match
It's just gonna
one
be emoji.
emoji.
Emoji. It's gonna be emoji reviews of all the matches. So
I'm
Matt,
psyched. It's a weird thing to be able to promote with because you're normally
it's a
trying to
cool
push
idea.
anticipation and it's like sometimes I'm like I might have a match graphic and I sit on it for a few days because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna drop this the week of the show, or things especially now may change. Like I had to shift, uh, you know, Sean Christopher and Rob Killjoy from one show to the other show,
Mhm.
back to the other show when things got altered, and it's just how we're how we are right now. Just trying to urge everyone to be safe, and life happens.
Hmm.
um it's kind of fun though. I don't have to announce anything. I think that I've got 2.5 years of credibility with wrestlers and fans as far as what we've been able to do. um Dylan and I are talking daily about it. I've talked with Scott Hensley about it, and you know you're gonna find out when you hear what Scott Hensley announces.
Are there still tickets left for anybody watching?
There are single digits in tickets, um, and they're available at. I've got a very inexpensive website because we are very DIY. Do it on the cheap. Um, it is action-wrestling.com. It'll be Friday night, January 8th. Bell time is 7 o'clock, in Tyrone, Georgia,
So if
and
you're close, pick up your tickets
you can
now.
follow us. You can follow us on Twitter at Wrestle WRESTLE Action and the number one.
We've been sharing that in the chat all night, and you can also find Matt at Matt the Mouth on Twitter. He's very entertaining to
Hmm.
follow, and always has a good opinion on not only wrestling but other things in the world today. So you're a good
I
follow,
should
Matt.
I should write down that you said that so I remember it.
Yeah. Well, Matt, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you giving us some insight of what 2020 was, and obviously how 2021 could be going forward. I think this show, being a surprise booking, being something that I know you're excited about, is something that we're going to all look forward to once it hits IWTV. And hopefully, we can take this and continue that peak all the way through 2021.
I'm excited for when the vaccine is really taking hold for COVID-19. I'm excited for when things can be back to normal. We never really will get back to that same normal, but when things open back up to whatever open back up means, I'm excited for the future. We've been trying to maintain and do and produce good shows, and hopefully that can continue. We were on a very good streak. The first 4 months of 2020 were going to be very good for us, and unfortunately that's gone. There's bigger things in life to worry about. um, there's a lot of people who are hurting, and I feel that constantly. So I feel lucky for what we've been able to do, and through Action Wrestling we've helped. We ran a Toys for Tots benefit.
Mhm.
We've donated to local nonprofits, and it's not nearly what it was, but I'm glad that we've been able to do that through wrestling. So that's a good feeling for me, to bring joy through wrestling to people.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all you do for wrestling.
Hmm.
From the wrestling community, thank you. From just two schlubs who just discovered indie wrestling this year, thank you. I
It's so
mean,
sad that we have to say that.
Hey,
I
it
hit 40 years old this year, and I am so mad that for 39 years I did not love indie wrestling as I do this year. So I have a lot to make up
that's
for.
you know what, a lot of people don't discover indie wrestling until they see a poster in their town for it and they decide to go. they might not be cognizant of it that exists, but it's a very cool thing, and you had to discover it. And you support it now, so
Mhm.
that's all that matters. And it's very appreciated that what everything you do for indie wrestling, for action, for other IWTV promotions, and that's a big deal because we are very much the definition of independent. We don't have the slickest produced shows. I think we do have some nice production touches, but we certainly don't have, a high production dollar. We certainly are very, I'm one guy doing it, most of it myself, as far as the tickets and the promotion and, reaching out to other people to coordinate it. But um, that's okay. It's successful and it's, uh, but everything you do is a big help.
We're trying to do our part. And speaking of which, uh, just want to reiterate that though we have not hit our goal for our 12 indie wrestlers, we are not done. Um, we are going to go ahead and continue to push on and keep raising. We will make some announcements as to our first recipients of our donations. Once again, 100% of your donations is going to indie wrestlers that have
We're gonna get there.
interviewed. We will not stop until we
Yeah, we
get
will
there.
not stop till we get there.
You are going to be so annoyed with us people until we get there. You are going to get us there. We are going to get there. Thank you for all those who donated already. I've shouted out a bunch of you already. Thank you for those who will be donating in the future. Obviously, go follow us here on Twitch. Go ahead and follow us and subscribe over on YouTube. Go follow us on all our Twitter pages. We're not doing this for the follows. We're not doing this for the views. We're doing this for indie wrestling. So if by some chance you discover Matt and Action Wrestling through watching this, you're welcome.
Yep.
Matt, hang tight. We'll talk to you in the green room. Everybody else, I'm going to send you out. I'll send you on a raid someplace, but thank you for joining us. Matt, we'll see you Friday.
Thanks. Look forward to it.
Visit iwtv.live today to watch these great Action Wrestling events, plus numerous other archive shows from Action and other great independent promotions. Use code ACTION for a free 5-day trial. Don't miss out. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Bald Monkeys. Watch us live on our new Twitch channel, twitch.tv/The Bald Monkeys.